Hi, everybody, and welcome to Module 5. You made it halfway through the course. Congratulations. So this week, towards the end of the week, I will be providing some midterm feedback for you so that we can check in and see how you're doing in the course and make sure that you're set up for success for the rest of the course and you can earn the grade that you would like to earn. So we'll be talking about that later this week. So I'd like to go through the module with you and we'll take a walkthrough as usual. Go ahead and click on the modules tab and scroll down to module 5. So when you get to module 5, you'll notice that we are going to be focused on recognizing, analyzing, and constructing arguments. So this will go right along with module 4 and what we learned about logical fallacies and critical errors of thinking. So click on the module 5 learning pathway to begin. And this will give you an overview of what we'll be working on this week. So in this module, we're going to be exploring the nature of an argument. And that is a claim that's based on reasoning. And so we're going to be thinking about how to formulate a thesis sentence around an argument. So this is kind of a different thesis sentence than you might be exposed to. There's a format of writing a persuasive thesis sentence so that you can set up an argument. So we're going to have the opportunity to evaluate some different arguments, the quality of those arguments. We're going to be looking at the fallacies contained in those arguments. And we're going to be learning how to accurately identify premises and conclusion. This is a kind of more logic-based look at what we'll be doing, and I'll provide some logical formulas so you can see what that looks like. It looks a little bit more like math than maybe you're used to, but it is a deductive style of reasoning. Usually we're using the inductive style. So we'll cover some of those details and you'll understand what I'm talking about as you make it through module 5. So we'll be checking for completeness of an argument, clarity, relevance, credibility, the soundness of the premises, etc. So there's lots of things to unpack for this week and lots of new ideas to learn. So if you scroll down, you'll see there are some required readings. You'll see there's some module notes to look through as usual. And then we have 2 discussions this week. We will have a discussion on analyzing arguments and then a discussion on constructing arguments. You'll also see that there is a smart book quiz for chapter 6. And the due dates are the same as usual. Thursdays for your initial discussion post, Sundays for your reply to your classmates, and Sunday for that quiz. So scroll down and click the next button and we can begin to dive a little deeper into all of the information that I just went over. So the next button brings us to the required readings, and you'll see that there's some module notes and chapter 6 in our textbook, and then some required things for you to view. Now, you should at this time be incorporating as many of the required resources that we're working with in this class. So that means not just using your textbook or the module notes, but also some of these additional resources. And that's reflected in the feedback that I've been giving you, particularly for the last few assignments. We really want to work on our synthesis, and that's a way to do that. The more sources that you can apply to your thinking, the better your thinking quality is, and the better you can communicate your ideas. So go ahead and click the next button, and that'll take us to the module notes on recognizing, analyzing, and constructing arguments. This gives you a little highlight of what we're going to be discussing. And something for you to remember that an argument is made up of 2 or more propositions, and it has a conclusion which are supported by the other propositions, and those are known as premises. So it may be a little confusing right now, but I think by the end of the module, you'll have a pretty good grasp on what that means. So the other factors to consider in evaluating an argument is that we need to be able to break an argument down to help us to recognize the premises and the conclusions that are being drawn. So go ahead and click the next button, and that'll take us to our discussion on analyzing arguments. As you can see, the purpose of this activity is to practice how to recognize and construct arguments. Some of you may have a lot of experience with this, which you can bring into your discussions, and that'll help your other classmates. But don't worry if you don't have a lot of experience. You're going to be learning as a learning community, and you can rely on myself and your peers for help and support. You'll notice that there are some resources for you, starting your research, finding answers, research strategies, and you can click on those links and tutorials. So what you're going to be doing here is selecting one of the 2 articles from your chosen critical thinking issue that you believe provides the strongest argument, and then you're going to be addressing the following items in your post. You'll define the issue and then identify the premises and the conclusion of the argument. Sometimes it's easier to identify the conclusion first. So if you're struggling to figure that out, I recommend starting with the conclusion and then seeing what premises are leading to that conclusion. And then when you construct it for your post, you'll be able to put it in the premise, conclusion format. You'll be analyzing the argument using 5 guidelines for evaluating, and that's clarity, credibility, relevance, completeness, and soundness. And then you'll be identifying the most compelling counter arguments. So of course, when you're considering arguments, you always want to consider the counter arguments. If you make a statement about something, but it doesn't have any counter arguments, then it's not really an argument. And that's usually then just an informational sentence. So something to watch out for is whether or not you actually have created an argument. If you just state some information, most likely you have not yet created an argument. So you would need to expand on that. Scroll down and click the next button. And that takes us to our discussion on constructing arguments. So this is the next piece associated with the first discussion exercise. So for this discussion, you're going to identify an argument from the list below that you consider to be the most persuasive. And of course, you're just choosing, one of the topics that's available, like we have been in the last discussions. Some of these are really fun to think through. So option 2 says to answer and discuss the following items. All right, so first identify an argument and then discuss the following items, and you will be all set. If you have any questions about that, feel free to email me. This particular discussion might make more sense after you've read through the chapter and all the resources for this module. So click on the next button, and that takes you to the instructions for our Smart Book quiz on Chapter 6. So you're going to be utilizing the Smart Book, and of course the quizzes are worth 25% of your overall grade. And that is really it for our Module 5. Then if you hit the next button, you'll see that Chapter 6 loads, and that's where you would find that information. Of course, as usual, that is the last post in our module. So this might be a bit of a tricky module for you, depending on your experience with arguments. So please don't hesitate to reach out or to set up a Zoom call with me if you need some additional help. Have a great week.